Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on this video. Just wanted to start this video with the usual reminder. This review of Ratchet and Clank 3 follows up upon the videos I've done on Ratchet 1 and 2, so go check those out if you haven't. Also, the members of my Patreon got to see this video well before everyone else on YouTube since I worked to get them all out in advance. Right now, you can become a patron and get access to my review of Ratchet Deadlocked, or you can wait until next week for it to drop. It's your choice. When getting into the game proper, the most important thing to mention that sets this game far above all the other Ratchet games would be that it comes with a demo of Sly 2 Band of Thieves. By association, Ratchet 3 is absorbing some of that greatest game ever energy. In all seriousness, I decided to check out the demo for this video, and it was pretty interesting. You play the prologue of Sly 2 and submissions from the first episode. Clearly, when this build was given to Insomniac, the game wasn't finished yet because the HUD is different, the engine struggles with the frame rate in ways that it never did in the final game, and some of the dialogue's different too. I think it's cool that they kept up the tradition of Ratchet housing Sly demos, because when the HD collection came out in 2012, it came with a code that allowed you to play a demo of Sly 4, which was coming out soon at the time. But that's enough Sly for today. What was this video about again? That right there was the opening of Insomniac Games' Ratchet and Clank 3, Up Your Arsenal, which I again thought was the full title, given that the AND symbol was flipped in this game's logo to look like a 3. This game has what might be the best subtitle in the history of video games, really going in on the innuendo angle, or more so than Going Commando already was. I really wonder just how many parents across the nation in the 2000s stopped and wondered, wait, what are these Ratchet and Clank games about anyway? I mean, Ratchet 2, Going Commando, Ratchet and Clank, Size Matters, what are these games? Anyway, now that we're into the video, I'll repeat a talking point I brought up before. Generally speaking, third entries in video game franchises have a better track record than third entries in movie franchises, where the first one creates a great thing and then the second one refines all the elements. In movie franchises, it's often difficult to think of what to do next after making a great sequel besides getting even crazier, which tends to be their downfall. In video games, you'll have a game like, say, Crash Bandicoot on PS1, where the game introduces a pretty simple and effective formula that a sequel could nail down the elements the first lacked in. Crash 2 controlled much better and had more present story and solidified identity as a series, as well as having the warp room structure the coming games would also have. Crash 3 keeping what made Crash 2 work really well with more variety and extra power-ups to shake up the gameplay. The ultimate Crash experience just 2 games after the first one. This is basically the trend Ratchet and Clank followed, as the first game was really good but lacked in some major areas that a sequel could have improved upon. 1 year later we got Ratchet and Clank 2, which improved upon all the first game's faults while expanding the scope of the gameplay dramatically with the RPG mechanics and a plethora of game modes. Now, the year is 2004, and Insomniac dropped Ratchet and Clank 3, which sought to be the most explosive and action-packed game in the series yet, improving upon what was left to fix in Ratchet 2. When I was a kid, I played Ratchet 3 just as much as the second game. I loved both of them and I spent hours playing them, although I never actually beat either one. I thought these games were really difficult back in the day. The first time I beat a game in the series was actually a crack in time in 2011. Since then, I've obviously played through Ratchet 2 and 3 both numerous times. When I do play this game, I've always held it in the same high regards as Ratchet 2, although that game has always won out just thanks to the extra nostalgia. If you read the title of the video, The Perfect Finale, you're probably confused as to what I mean, because this was obviously not the last Ratchet and Clank game in the series. However, bear with me and I think it'll make sense in a bit. For now, let's get into the game by starting with the premise. Ratchet and Clank are still hanging out in the Bogon Galaxy as 2 things are established right at the beginning. Clank is now a superstar as he plays the main character on the Holovid series, Secret Agent Clank, where Ratchet plays his bumbling chauffeur, Jeeves.
Bring the car around, Jeeves, and mind the ejector seat this time.
Stay tuned for more Secret Agent Clank.
But suddenly, Ratchet's home planet of Veldin in the Solana Galaxy is attacked by Dr. Nefarious, an evil robot that plans to wipe out all organic life forms in the galaxy with the aid of the Tyrannoids. You might wonder why the Tyrannoids, organic life forms, are teamed up with a robot that seeks to wipe out organic life forms, and to that, I can just say that Tyrannoids have no concept of irony. And no, that's not a joke, it's in the manual, it's canon. Anyway, Ratchet and Clank blast back to their home galaxy to join the Galactic Rangers in their battle against Dr. Nefarious. As soon as you land on Veldin, you'll be familiar with the controls if you played Ratchet and Clank 2. I thought that game handled really well, so if it stopped at being more of that, Ratchet 3 would already be on its way to a good review. However, you open the options menu and you're met with some game-changing features. The first-person mode from Ratchet 2 has become something you can toggle on from the start of the game, and it comes with the same benefits and drawbacks as it did in that game. It's not a mode built for platforming, but now you can move and aim upwards. What the menu calls third-person mode is how you play like Ratchet 2. But then there's the third control type, Lock Strafe mode. This one renders the other two basically obsolete. With Lock Strafe mode, you do not need to hold down the L2 button to strafe. Instead, when any weapon is out, moving the left analog stick will see you move in that direction automatically while Ratchet is still aimed forward, while you get full control of the camera with the right analog stick. And best of all, shooting your weapons is now on the R1 button. Like I said, this completely changes the game. In the last two videos, I've mentioned the claw grip effect. I had to do that because shooting was on the circle button, something you use your thumb for, but you also use your thumb for controlling the right analog stick, so moving the camera and shooting didn't feel good. With shooting on R1, you can move Ratchet with your left thumb, move the camera with your right thumb, and shoot with your right index finger. During any combat scenario, you can now aim upwards by turning the camera where you want to shoot. The other control methods still have their advantages. For example, with third-person mode, you can strafe with the wrench, meaning I don't need a weapon out to be able to move backwards. If you do find that to be a unique strength, the game has you covered since you can put the alternate control methods on the quick select ring. However, I just stuck with the Lock Strafe mode, it's the best one by far. In Ratchet 2, I talked about a list of fundamental improvements the game made to the controls over Ratchet 1. The list of improvements is longer when going from Ratchet 1 to 2, but when going from 2 to 3, this one improvement to the controls and customization makes 3 the most fun game to control yet. The weapons are once again fantastic. The new controls allow for basically every weapon to work really well. Up your arsenal doing new versions of the usual tropes like the Nitro Launcher, the N60 Storm, and the Shock Blaster. The N60 Storm is my favorite blast type weapon, and the new controls are entirely to thank for that. Between Ratchet 2's Lancer and this, they share many properties, but the N60 Storm wins out because I can aim it upwards. The Pulse Rifle on Ratchet 2 is a good weapon, but the Flux Rifle on Ratchet 3 is even better. The Snipe feature went pretty much unused for my entire playthrough because using the weapon normally was way more satisfying. The Flux Rifle does not have a reticle when using it out of first-person mode, but that was part of the fun for me. When it is in first-person view, you can't move while aiming, and this is when those new controls come back into play yet again. Doing my best to line up my shots without a reticle felt great because if it hit, then I just did the damage of a sniper rifle without precise aiming, and if I missed, I just wasted one shot from a limited ammo pool. There are so many great weapons in this game, like the Annihilator, a typical missile launcher that upgrades to have bouncer properties. There's the Spitting Hydra, where you can target multiple enemies at once and attack them all with electricity, and the Disc Blade gun, which fires giant discs around the room that bounce off of the walls. A direct improvement over the Chopper from Ratchet 2. As I just alluded to, weapon upgrades are back in this game, and it's even better than before. In Ratchet 3, weapons go from version 1 to version 5. I'd say it takes the same amount of time for a weapon to go from version 1 to 5 as it did to go from 1 to 2 in the last game. I can't be sure on that, but I just remember upgrades in Ratchet 2 taking a long time. But here, the upgrade system really incentivizes you to use your weapons because several mini upgrades between version 1 and the big upgrade at version 5 gives you more instant gratification. No better example than the Shock Blaster, a weapon that's much more fun to use than the Blitz gun from Ratchet 2, and this is directly tied to its upgrades. Once you get to version 2, you can charge the Shock Blaster to release a more powerful attack, and when you get to version 5, the previous charge shot becomes the default, and you get this new charge shot that clears through crowds of enemies, but at the cost of 10 ammo out of 50. Gotta choose which shot you want to do and if the ammo consumption's worth it. But the fun does not stop there. There are rewards for being a loyal fan of the series. First, when buying weapons at the vendor, you can have the game read your memory card, and if you have a complete Ratchet 1 save file, you can get the employee discount. A callback to this gag from Ratchet 1.
Do I get a discount on gadgets now?
You have to be with the company for 2 years before the employee discount kicks in.
Well, 2 years have passed since that game came out, and now you have the discount. Well, in theory. I didn't get a damn discount, and I was pretty confused because I know I just played Ratchet 1 a few weeks ago on this very memory card. But I think the reason I didn't get the discount was because when starting New Game Plus, I saved over my completed save file. So the Hollow Guys, the reward for meeting the Gadgetron CEO on Kalibo 3, is not on my save file. That's just a guess, though. To reward players for completing Ratchet 2, you'll find Slim Cognito from the Bogon Galaxy underwater on the planet Aquatos.
Slim Cognito? What are you doing down here?
I had a small run-in with the cops concerning a suck cannon upgrade that was mistakenly sold to a minor. I swear the kid looked 18. Anyway, I needed to find a less conspicuous place to do business. I take it you two are still in the market?
Well, let's see what you've got.
Slim will sell you weapons from Ratchet 2 like the Bouncer, the Lava Gun, and the Mini Turret Glove. With a Ratchet 2 save file, you get them for free. The weapons that were brought back from Ratchet 2 aren't here for the sake of novelty like Ratchet 1's weapons in the second game. They're just as useful as the new weapons. They even have upgrades where the developers got to improve upon what they've done before. The mini turret glove was a great weapon, but I thought the upgrade where the turrets fired slow missiles was a letdown, and the lava gun was even worse than that. Here, it's fixed as the mini turret glove's version 5 fires missiles much faster, and the lava gun is upgraded into the liquid nitrogen gun that freezes all enemies to death. Tearing your enemies to pieces is as fun as ever in Ratchet and Clank 3, but the game also adds a new element in between stages. Since Ratchet and Clank are working with the Galactic Rangers in this game, you get to hang out at the HQ, the Starship Phoenix. I've always loved safe areas to relax in when playing games, and the Starship Phoenix is no different. Here you buy new weapons, and also you can test them out before buying to see if you like them. You can play VR minigames, buy new armors, hang around in Ratchet's quarters, and visit the bridge where we meet the commander of the Rangers, Sasha, whose father's the Galactic President. I also love the music in this area. In general, I think the soundtrack in this game is great, having that same distinct Ratchet and Clank style while also sounding like you're battling in a war. I didn't get to mention the soundtrack in Ratchet 2, and that was just because of the fact that I couldn't find a natural spot to talk about it in. Music discussion is one of my weakest areas as a critic, so I didn't feel like it was needed to cram in a moment where I was like, the music of Ratchet 2 makes my ears melt for how good it is, which is how I felt about it. Anyway, one of the first missions the Rangers give Ratchet is exploring the planet Florana because it's where Captain Qwark has been sighted leading the tribe of monkeys.
On tonight's episode of Nature's Mysteries, we examine the Florana tree beast. Deep in the dense growth of Florana's Jambu forest lives a mysterious creature. Or maybe he doesn't. It's one of Nature's Mysteries.
I seen him run right through our camping site. He was buck naked, screaming and holding a banana. Or maybe it weren't a banana. It could be
One of Nature's Mysteries.
Back when Captain Qwark was a real hero, he defeated Dr. Nefarious, and so we need to find Qwark and get his help in stopping Nefarious before he enacts his revenge upon the galaxy. When Qwark regains his memories, he takes command of the Galactic Rangers and forms a new team, the Q-Force, consisting of himself, Ratchet, Clank, Scrunch the Monkey, Sasha, and some of the most memorable NPCs from Ratchet 1, Skid, Helga, and Alf. The writing in this game is absolutely hilarious. It starts with the villain, Dr. Nefarious, who the team was clearly proud of because this guy's a riot. Nefarious is a competent villain, which is an important part of having a funny villain. Like, if the Joker was an idiot, that would lessen his impact, I'd say. Nefarious has numerous schemes that work pretty well throughout the game, like capturing Clank and replacing him with an evil double so nobody gets suspicious, and successfully using his super weapon, the Bio-Obliterator. But I can get back to that later. When it comes to the comedy, they pull surprise after surprise with Nefarious. It's difficult to imagine a time when the gags with Dr. Nefarious were new, but just imagine seeing him glitch out and start playing pre-recorded soap operas for the first time.
Who is responsible for this outrage?
I believe it was a Captain Qwark or something.
Oh, Janice, you'll always be the love of my life.
You really should have that looked at.
Or just how many digs Lawrence does on his boss.
You put the wit in twit, sir.
And of course, there's the fact that the voice by Armin Shimmerman of Star Trek fame is just funny.
Behold the final chapter of this galaxy's destiny. The Age of Robots! You are my robot lover. Making my spark plugs go zap, zap, zap with your love. Lawrence!
Oh, dear, that was your audition for Galactic Idol, wasn't it? My mistake, sir. Dreadfully sorry. By all means, sir. Carry on.
As I mentioned, Captain Qwark is back in this game. It turns out that he was a pretty late addition to the script of Ratchet and Clank 2, which is why he's only revealed at the very end of the game. They thought his brand of humor worked really well in the first one and thought the sequel was missing something without him. The idea that Qwark is an essential part of the Ratchet series is how he basically became the star character of Ratchet 3. Ratchet and Clank having to work alongside this idiot and his massive ego driving the humor of the story. But this doesn't come at the cost of Ratchet and Clank as the protagonists, as they have a fun dynamic with everyone in the Q-Force cast. With these all being characters Ratchet and Clank interacted with in the first game, it shows how far they've come in status and personality now that they don't have time for these morons. But still, they grow to like them all by the end. It's an endearing cast of characters where you get all the benefits of feeling like you're part of a team in this game while they don't get in your way when playing, which is part of the joke. These guys don't do anything for you while you play. The assault on Aquatos and Tyrannosis coming with these briefing scenes where Qwark drafts this entire plan where Ratchet does literally everything.
All right, let's get to it. Yes, you there in the front.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering, what are the rest of you gonna be doing while I'm down there getting blasted?
We'll be monitoring the situation closely from here. Actually, we'll be down at the lunch buffet on Deck 5. It's Meatloaf Day.
That cutscene reminds me of the situation on Nebula G34 from Ratchet 2016. Like I said 2 videos ago, I don't want to draw too much attention to that game, but the parallel is there. The difference that I think allows Up Your Arsenal to be much funnier is the fact that this sort of saying the quiet part out loud humor is so outrageous and also new. Not a joke they spam like 6 times in one stage. But most importantly, in Ratchet 3, the player and Ratchet already know that these goobers are full of it, especially Qwark. He was the main villain of the last game after all. So it becomes funny because you just have to put up with it for the good of the galaxy. The joke being that these people are such hacks. In 2016, Qwark makes it so obvious that he's setting Ratchet up. Ratchet is therefore as dumb as the people around him, making the whole thing agonizing to watch. Ratchet 3, by comparison, is the exact opposite. Part of what makes it so enjoyable is the excellent acting. I haven't mentioned the acting in the series thus far because I thought this game was the best spot to do it in. This being the game where I'd say everyone hits their stride. James Arnold Taylor being solidified as Ratchet's main actor, David Kaye having been fantastic as Clank ever since the first game with his empathetic voice and charming sense of humor, and Jim Ward as Captain Qwark, who nails every scene he's in. It's absolutely tragic to hear what happened to him recently, and I wish his family nothing but the best. If he's done playing Qwark, he had a great run that'll be fondly remembered by millions for years to come.
But when news arrived that Dr. Nefarious had again risen to power, I knew where my true destiny lay. The training necessary to get back into tip-top shape has been exhausting, and my mind overflows with brilliant concepts. Though I still yearn for the bittersweet stench of my simian companions. The time has come to resume my duties as the greatest hero the galaxy has ever known, Captain Qwark!
When getting back into the game, it's worth mentioning that Ratchet 3 makes several small improvements that also impact the play experience. Ratchet 2 made some quality of life improvements, such as the gravity boots allowing you to do all your regular moves while climbing walls, which Ratchet 1 did not. That game also allowed you to just buy all the ammo you could afford with each weapon instead of needing to buy each bullet. Ratchet and Clank 3 expands upon this further by allowing you to just buy all the ammo for the weapons at once. Really improves the pacing. There are some other nifty features in this one, like being able to switch between your 3 most recently used weapons with a tap of the triangle button, or how the swing shot and the dynamo, 2 gadgets from Ratchet 2, have just been combined into one to save inventory space. Speaking of which, you now have a second quick select ring, so you no longer have to be picky about which weapons are going to be on the quick select ring because you can have room for all the useful stuff. Up Your Arsenal is just a very streamlined experience which can be felt in numerous ways, like how this game only has one arena as opposed to 2 different ones like Ratchet 2, or biggest of all, the fact that paying people to progress has been completely removed from the game. You might think this would decrease the playtime, but I don't mind it at all, since any time you'd spend gathering bolts to progress if you didn't already have them is just time spent grinding. Ratchet 3 feels just as long as the previous 2, and they managed to pull that off without having you pay people or things in order to progress. Like I said before, I never actually ran into that problem when playing Ratchet 1 or 2 again, but I have been playing these games all my life, and this improvement no doubt would enhance the first time experience. Even if I didn't get held up by that problem in the previous 2 games, I still don't miss it at all because it just drains me of perfectly usable bolts for no other reason besides fitting in with the consumerism commentary. Now, I tried to avoid spending bolts as much as I could. This time, it obviously wasn't to prepare myself for paywalls, but instead it's that I felt like a lot of the weapons were still pretty expensive, so I decided to hold off on buying them for as long as I could. This is when you realize another improvement this game makes over the last one. I complimented Ratchet 2 encouraging you to buy new weapons, making older ones become less useful as the game goes on. There is still a little bit of that in Ratchet 3, but the N60 Storm isn't completely useless by the end, the enemies have just toughened up. It makes sense. I mean, there is no reason why a giant bomb would stop doing a lot of damage even in the late game. But still, if you want to maximize your potential, you're going to spend those bolts on new weapons, which I did do more often in the late game when I started to build up more bolts. Getting bolts shouldn't be a problem because, like I said, the arena is back and it has a dedicated planet without the need to run back in from outside like you would in Ratchet 2. The arena has more stuff to do like platforming challenges or just the standard combat. The game solves the issue of needing 2 arenas, one for the early game and another for the late game, by giving the arena more challenges for the players to complete as the game goes on, incentivizing you to keep coming back and earning more bolts. You can also play these Qwark video games in your quarters on the Phoenix, these being a neat throwback to retro-styled games that, for consoles anyway, had completely fallen out of style. providing fun in their own way, rewarding you with more bolts for collecting all the Qwark tokens within. And lastly, the planets Marcadia, Tyrannosis, Rilgar, Kurwan, and Aridia will have these battlefield campaigns that you play alongside the Galactic Ranger bots that reward you with bolts for each mission. This works just fine for me because like the arenas, it allows you to upgrade your weapons simply by playing the game, also building a relationship between Ratchet and the soldiers you fight alongside, which is quite nice. The ones with vehicles and turrets are the worst though, because it takes away the best part that I just mentioned, the ability to increase the power of your weapons since you just have to sit there and shoot with vehicles. But I'm sure you're wondering, how did Battlefields even get into this game in the first place? Well, one of the biggest things of the 6th generation in gaming was the push for online multiplayer shooters. This game already introduced more third-person shooter mechanics into the mix, but by the request of Sony, Ratchet and Clank 3 introduces a full multiplayer mode with a lot of mechanics worked into the single player during these Battlefield segments. The multiplayer is given this charming tutorial video narrated by Captain Qwark. Locally, I never really cared for this mode as a kid, and now I can't even play it online since the PS2 servers are dead and the PS3 ones are the same way. But it was cool that they gave the multiplayer for Ratchet 3 and Deadlocked a second life in the first place. By contrast, the Uncharted remasters on PS4 didn't bother with this, which was a shame. I'm sure a lot of resources were spent on this game's multiplayer mode as it was a big selling feature. This could be argued as responsible for this game having, for lack of a better phrase, compromised level design. In Ratchet 3, there's far less exploration than the previous 2 games as the goal of every planet is now to blow up enemies. Some planets only ever have one main pathway while you do it, with it feeling pretty obvious that a decent amount of content got cut from the game. I mean, you can buy ship upgrades at the Phoenix, but the ship segments from Ratchet 2 have been completely omitted, so what's the point of wasting bolts on upgrades? The announcer on Annihilation Nation says you can catch him on the Florana racetracks, which is something that got completely cut from the Florana stage. But honestly, I'm not too upset about this. The content that isn't up your arsenal is consistently fun and rewarding, managing to give each planet an identity despite the fact that what you do on each level might be the same. For example, Holostar Studios sees you battle through the Noids as Ratchet alone. Kurwan is the level where the Noids get turned into robots, making them more difficult to beat. Florana has the player walk the path of death, Aquados is a team-up between Ratchet, Clank, and Skid to raid Nefarious' office, and so on. Each stage is informed by the story that I'm really invested in, making me enjoy playing the game when the combat controls and weapons already made me feel that way. Of course, no game is absolutely without flaws, and up your arsenal is the same way. Hunting for crystals is still a thing in Ratchet 3, but this time they decided to place it in a sewer rather than in open space. Either way, I just blast the charge boots through, but with a sewer, I feel the need to check the map every couple of seconds to make sure I'm going the right way. That, and the amoeboids get really annoying by the end of my playthrough of this segment. This game has a hacking gadget like the previous 2 games, and this one has to be one of the worst in the series. I can't even really call this a puzzle, it's just sitting there slowly shooting the red dots and collecting the green ones. On planets where you get back-to-back puzzles like these, I really start nodding off because it's very boring to play and especially to replay. This doesn't count as a puzzle, but I also don't like these Tira guys moments, just pressing buttons that appear on the screen. It's just another pace breaker. Then you have the 3 Clank sections. Clank segments have been in each of the games since Ratchet 1, and I've never liked playing as Clank. The basic idea is that you have these tiny robots called Gadgetbots follow you around and respond to your commands. Clank just moves so slowly that it makes each of these segments a drag. Each game added improvements to this, like how in Ratchet 1 you'd have to slowly trek back to where you found the Gadgetbot if one of them dies. Ratchet 2 fixed that and made Clank control better. Ratchet 3 introduces Qwark's monkey into the mix, but it doesn't save these segments from feeling really dull and getting in the way of the main gameplay. The worst of the bunch being the Clank segment on Qwark's HQ with this terrible checkpoint that sees you redo almost the entire thing if you die right at the end. Ratchet 3 making these pace-breaking flaws the most obvious, since otherwise this is the most consistent action the series has ever seen, which doesn't just go for the gameplay. I feel that way about the comedy and the story as well. The banter between the characters is great, but the satire is also on point. This game decided to focus its satire on pop culture instead of the usual corporation themes from Ratchet 1 and 2. It's a direction that really works, and it starts right at the beginning with the Secret Agent Clank Holovid series. Dr. Nefarious appears on Supervillain Weekly. We see the backstory of Captain Qwark by playing his video game series. One of Nefarious' main lackeys is Courtney Gears, the intergalactic pop star that spreads her ideology through her music. And then, the game parodies what was, at the time, the previous US president.
Our demographic research indicates that robots will make up 100% of the galactic population by this time next week. Of course, that's great news for my re-election campaign because, as you know, I'm half robot myself.
I can tell you that all these things exist in Up Your Arsenal, however, I think the most important thing to note about the satire in this game is how it drives the plot. The main theme of Ratchet 3 is the culture of hero worship that exists in their galaxy and ours. The game begins with Ratchet being completely sidelined by everyone because people think Secret Agent Clank is the hero, not Jeeves over here, even if that's complete fiction. Ratchet and Clank don't suspect anything from Courtney Gears because of the appearance she presents on TV. And Qwark was once a real hero but has become nothing but a cowardly shell of his former self, but can get away with it because of the image he's built up. The point isn't that fame corrupts, since Ratchet and Clank are TV superstars now, but they still put the good of the galaxy before everything else. It's instead that the culture of letting reputation carry you corrupts in the case of Captain Qwark, and some people are just bad to begin with. Just because someone gives off a certain vibe on camera doesn't mean that you know them off camera. Dr. Nefarious is even a big fan of Secret Agent Clank and tries to give Clank a chance to join him, but Clank sticks to his morals. Overall, I'm not sure what they were going for with Nefarious' plan to end the oppression robots suffer at the hands of organics by wiping them all out, since he's supposed to be a mustache-twirling cartoon character, not a villain with a real point to make. It's even weirder giving Nefarious' backstory as someone who used to be organic but became a robot after his first defeat at the hands of Captain Qwark. But still, I don't think that takes anything away from his character. He's absolutely hilarious, and like I said, he's a competent villain that gets shit done, and that's the most important thing. By the end of the game, I was completely immersed in it. For the third time in a row, I could not put the controller down. This game nailed the climax like Ratchet 1, when the second game had dropped the ball by the end. Ratchet, Clank, and Qwark raid Nefarious' base, but he sets off the self-destruct feature. By this point in the story, Clank has been captured, and the fake Clank allows the ship to take off before Qwark can make it back. And you actually think Qwark died in a heroic mission. Maybe he isn't so bad after all. Doesn't stop us from getting what might be the funniest scene in the game at the funeral.
Captain Qwark had so many, wonderful qualities, I just don't know where to begin.
Such as?
Okay, he was really tall, and he had a unique fashion sense, and he had a really big chin with kind of a sort of a, well, you know, a butt shape. Well, you know, I think I've droned on long enough.
I just heard what happened. I wanted to offer my condolences to the team. Qwark's loss is a true tragedy. The man was a hero, brave, honest, kind, and humble to the core.
What a load of bullshit.
Captain Qwark may be gone, but his indomitable spirit of heroism lives on in each of you.
The purpose of Nefarious' bio-obliterator is to turn all organic life forms into robots, which he did on Qwark, this being the planet where Ratchet rescues Clank. Ratchet and Clank investigate the crash site of Nefarious' ship and find out that Qwark survived and fled to his secret hideout because he realized something.
I could have died!
This level's one of the peak moments of engagement for the entire game.
Hey, kid, the bouncer just went on sale. If you get here fast, I'll throw in a 10% smart shopper discount.
I know I pulled that gag for the original Ratchet 3 review, but it works so well because it's so true. I'd do anything to get that bouncer. But really though, the suspense is through the roof when playing this stage, and the payoff is a really great cutscene where Ratchet just chews Qwark out for being a piece of shit who quit the mission to save the galaxy to protect himself.
So, a few trillion people get turned into robots. Who am I to say who should or shouldn't be turned into a robot?
You're pathetic, Qwark. I can't believe I once looked up to you. Let's go, Clank.
The people of this galaxy need you, Qwark. They believe in you. You can give them hope. You have a chance to redeem yourself and become the hero you have always wanted to be.
Bringing the whole trilogy full circle. Ratchet once wanted to be Qwark, then wanted to kill him, but now doesn't have time to waste on this loser. The Phoenix gets attacked by Nefarious' army. You fight through that to save the team and retaliate by destroying the bio-obliterator. And then you make way for the final stage, which is a good level, but it also has the hacker and the Tira guys, so that brings it down in my estimation, but it's brought back up by the final boss, where Dr. Nefarious puts up a real challenge, unlike the Protopet.
I am defeated. I have no choice but to throw myself on your mercy.
Really? I mean, that's right, Nefarious. Your reign of terror is finally...
Sucker!
I always love that bit. But as I was saying, Nefarious has attacks that do a lot of damage and are tough to dodge, but with the right finesse, you can take him down. Although this attack where there are multiple Nefariouses on the screen sucks. That one I just try to brute force my way through. Nefarious then activates the second bio-obliterator, but at that moment, Captain Qwark comes back to save the day, finally proving himself as a real hero. It's moments like that which make me love this game's story. Captain Qwark started as an idol, but then you saw through his facade in Ratchet 1. In the sequel, he was lower than ever before, being the villain in an attempt to be the hero. Now, he had a choice between being an actual hero or not, and he took it. It's a great 3-game arc for this guy, which wraps up perfectly in this game where he stole the show in every scene he was in. With Nefarious defeated, the whole crew gets to watch the Agent Clank movie and have a good time. The end. After it's over, you can play through challenge mode with the same incentive as Ratchet 2. Now the weapons you have fully upgraded can be bought again to be leveled up to version 8, and some of these upgrades are unlocked really quickly, so it's very satisfying to do. You also have access to the Rhino, or just the Rhino 3, for a measly 3 million bolts. This thing starts with the same blue rockets from the Rhino 2, but now the rockets all individually target something. It's great to use. It can be leveled up as well to become this red wave of energy that nukes everything on the screen. Don't like the white screen flash on version 5, but otherwise it's great. I cleared the whole game on challenge mode and even started it up again a second time because I was having that much fun, something I did not do for the previous games. When looking at the title, you probably wondered how I could say it's the perfect finale when this wasn't even close to the last game. Well, to explain what I mean, it's just that I think Ratchet and Clank 3 does just about everything right when wrapping a trilogy up. Seriously, if this was the last game, I really don't think anyone could complain. The mechanics have stayed consistent, but evolved so much from Game 1 to Game 3. This being the natural endpoint of everything introduced in Ratchet 1 from the mechanics to the story. A story that closes the book on our favorite characters but also ends in a way where the adventure continues. It leaves room for more games but also serves as the perfect ending if it were to be that way. I mean, going from PS2 to PS3, who could say Ratchet would keep going? Spyro and Crash got dropped when the companies went from PS1 to PS2, but maybe Ratchet and Clank 3 could have been the last mainline game from Insomniac. And while Crash and Spyro were dropped because of publishing rights reasons with Universal, but at the time of Up Your Arsenal's release, they could just as easily drop Ratchet and Clank as well. But either way, Up Your Arsenal was a great way to go out. Of course, in hindsight, it's very interesting to see that when developing Ratchet and Clank 3, the team was far less confident. The team was split between developing a fully fleshed out multiplayer, trying to include more third-person shooter mechanics to appeal to as many audiences as possible, with more staff than ever before, some of which not being as experienced as others. I can only imagine how stressful it was to make this game. They shot for the moon with this one, and instead of crashing and burning like many other developers, they absolutely nailed it. Up Your Arsenal being one of the highest rated games on the PlayStation 2, selling over 2 million copies in the US alone. I think this game is a masterpiece. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close for me. I've always preferred Ratchet 2 due to the higher amount of nostalgia with that being my first game in the series, but when playing and writing for this video, it was pretty clear that Ratchet 3 comes out on top as the better game because it takes everything that worked in Ratchet 2's gameplay and continues to make it better. Almost 20 years later, and regardless of how much content might have been cut, or if the game doesn't have as much platforming, I just think the game is great, and the devs should definitely still be proud of the work it took to bring Ratchet this far in just 2 years. But I think that's enough for today. Ratchet and Clank as a series kept going after this, and Insomniac even did another one on the PlayStation 2 that dropped 1 year later, Ratchet Deadlocked, which I'll take a look at next week. Join the Patreon to check it out now. Otherwise, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.
What do you mean we can't teleport to a planet?
I'm afraid we're well out of range, sir. Perhaps if you had bothered to specify a destination.
When will we be in range?
Oh, I'm sure something will come along in, say, 5 or 10,000 years.
Ah! I don't believe this! Now what?
I don't suppose you can play drums.
Ah!